One of us, a true patriot. I've been to with many rallies with this guy. He's a very good guy. Here he is.
All right. Hey guys, thanks for coming out here today to stand up for freedom, to stand up for the Second Amendment. That's what I'm talking about. That's what we need. For far too long, the conservatives and the libertarians have been hiding. They've been hiding, they're afraid, because the cultural war that we're going through right now is out of control and is blanketing it with lies. And the time is now. It is not next year. It is not next week. It is now. It is today. We have to begin to make a choice. We got to make a choice, ladies and gentlemen. Do you want to participate on the field, or do you want to watch from the sideline? Because this is a huge cultural war that we're going through, and they're kicking our asses, guys. They're kicking our asses. They got the media, okay, the mainstream media. They got the schools, the professors, the colleges. They got the teachers in the schools, the social media. They got everything. And this whole time we've been sitting in our houses, keeping our mouths shut, because of how mean they can be, how rude they can be, how much they can judge you for standing up for freedom, for standing up for God. Oh, hey, I'll tell you this, okay? Last year, I go out on the streets and I declare that God is real. And I declare that freedom is one of the most important things that we have in this country. And there was a lot of pushback. A lot of pushback from not just Antifa, but from the media, from politicians, Nancy Pelosi, the local mayors, the city council members. They don't want you to be thinking about freedom. They don't want you to be thinking about God. They want you to think about your skin color, your gender, your sexuality, anything other than what is inside here. And this is the key, man. We got to begin to look inside, and we got to begin to grow spiritually. If we rely on this world too much to take back Washington, we're not going to be able to do it. We have to be able to look to find something bigger and stronger than ourselves, than anything that we know. Here's what I believe. I believe that these rights that we have and freedom, okay, they don't come from this government. They don't come from this world. They don't come from people. They don't even come from the Constitution. It comes from God. It comes from God. The right to be free, as long as you don't hurt anybody else, that's the country that I believe God wants for us to have. And at the essence of freedom, at the foundation of freedom, okay, the spirit of freedom, right in the middle of that is the right to protect freedom. And in this country, and in this world, the way that we protect our country is we do it with the Second Amendment. We do it with the firearms. And for far too long in the history of this world, we've allowed other people to take away our God-given rights. We just give them up. Time after time, empire after empire, we just give up our weapons. We just bend a knee. Okay, you look at Hitler, Mao, Stalin, go back to the Roman Empire. We continue to give it up to other people. God gave us this right. This is a right towards freedom, a right to protect your country. And we continue to give it up. Here's what's crazy to me, the brainwashing in this country. Is it crazy? What the hell happened to the activist community in this country to the point where they're literally marching to give up their own rights? What the hell? How did that happen? Did anyone else notice that? I mean, you go back at the activist community, you know, I looked into it, I'm an activist, and it's very interesting that now these activists these days, they're doing everything they can to get a bigger government. They're doing everything they can to take away your rights, take away your freedoms, take away your liberties, all in the name of, you know, social justice or your skin color. You look at Black Lives Matter and these other things, okay? But here's the thing. I believe in my heart, okay, that one of the most important weapons that we can have in this country is without a doubt the rifle. It's the safest gun you can have. Statistically, you're talking about 300 people per year that are murdered, right? But here's the thing about the rifle that we don't hear about enough, okay? The rifle is the thing that keeps us the most powerful military in the world. You take our military away, just the rifles in this country, we have millions and millions and millions of citizens who've stocked up on ammo who will not allow any foreign ground troops to take one step on this country. In World War II, that's right. Hey, thanks. In World War II, I talk about this all the time. I'm Japanese. A lot of people, I kind of say that a lot because apparently I'm a white supremacist, but I'm Japanese, okay? And so this is what I talk about. My family talks about this, okay? And when the Japanese, the military, they crossed the sea, they went over to China, and the military, the government failed to protect their people. They failed. And the people were left with no guns. These men were unable to protect their women, protect their children, protect their households. So the Japanese soldiers went through the land. They raped and murdered the women, the children. It's one of the saddest things. This is the thing. This is why this is very important, guys. We can never, ever allow that to happen in our country. We will never give up our rifle. We will never allow any foreign ground troops to come onto our land and to rape and murder our women, our children. We will protect this land. We will protect our households. We will protect this country with our own blood if we have to. But that means we got to do everything within our power to stand up for your right to own and carry a semi-automatic rifle. It needs to be in every single household. This is why when I'm running this year, a lot of things I'm going to be saying is kind of different. It's unique. I am going to be encouraging every single household to have a rifle. Stock up on as much ammo that your family can afford. We're talking about deterring millions and millions of people dying from genocide. We're talking about stopping people like Hitler, okay? I am sorry, God bless their souls, of the 300 people who die every single year from the rifle. But I'm willing to take that to save millions and millions and millions. And I will say this last thing, okay? Is it just me, or does it seem like the whole, the way that the media and the left focuses on the gun deaths, it seems kind of racist? Because you get 15 kids, God bless their souls, that die in Florida who are white, okay? And the whole country wants to burn it down. They want to like take away all our guns. But yet we have thousands and thousands of black children dying in the streets, and no one says a damn thing about it. It's one of the most pathetic things. It is a disgrace to our country. And these single black mothers living in these areas that have so much gun control, they can't even protect their household. They can't even protect their household. And so the criminals are running around taking full advantage of all the victims, okay? So I'll finish up with this. Okay? I'm making a call that we begin to take down this empire above us peacefully, non-violently. But at what point do we say enough is enough? At what point, guys? Every single year, they take more rights. They pass more laws, more taxes, more regulations. It's incremental. But at what point do we come together and we unite this country? We unite the conservatives, the libertarians, unite the moderate left who are for your right to own and carry a gun. At what point are we going to have this revolution that needs to happen in the Pacific Northwest, and we can become a symbol for the rest of the country? People see Washington as a lost cause. I hear it all the time. I go all over the country, and they kind of laugh at Washington. Imagine this. This is what I envision. Imagine this. Imagine we take Washington. And when people think about Washington, they don't think about rain. They don't think about the Seahawks. They don't think about Seattle. They think liberty. They think freedom. Because I want Washington to be the most freest state in this country and to be a lighthouse, a beacon of hope, a beacon of light for the rest of the country. So we can go back. We can take the power away from the people at the top and give it back to the American people exactly where it belongs. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for having me here today. I appreciate it.
One of you for showing up here today. Let me introduce myself because I'm sure that a lot of people out here don't know me. Don't know me from Adam unless you happen to see the last gun rally we had out here in January. King 5 got a good picture of me. They plastered up all over the internet. But I'm Chris Court. I'm your local point of contact with the National Constitutional Coalition of Patriotic Americans, which is what we all are here. The NCCPA is a grassroots organization made up of patriots, just like each and every one of you, that care about the direction that our country is headed. We care about seeing the U.S. Constitution upheld as it was originally intended, not how many progressives would like to reinterpret it. And therefore we care deeply about defending the enumerated rights recognized within the Constitution, especially the Second Amendment. And since that is the right that protects all other rights, as a friend of mine will be talking to you guys about a little bit later. To that end, the NCCPA is hosting rallies just like this. Most of them have already concluded around the nation, to support our communities by giving you all the opportunity to show your support for your Second Amendment rights. Now, I would wager that most of us here could recite the Second Amendment from memory. Say it with me. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Those of us who love the Constitution are often accused of only caring about that last half of the Second Amendment. We're told that if we would only read the first half, that we would understand that it's not talking about us at all. It's talking about the militia. It's talking about the National Guard, and it has nothing to do with the right of individual citizens to own a firearm. But we know better, right? We know the people in the last half of the amendment are essentially the same as the militia and even as the state in the first half of the amendment. And therefore, we love the first half of the amendment just as much as we love the last half. The people in the last half of the amendment, the ones who have the right to keep and bear arms, are the same people in the First Amendment who have the right to peaceably assemble and petition their government, as we're out here doing today. The militia spoken of in the Second Amendment are not the military. They're not even the National Guard. No, the amendment to the Constitution, no amendment to the Constitution is needed to protect the right of government to have weapons. So it would make no sense to have the military have a right to keep and bear arms, or the National Guard to have a right to keep and bear arms. Rather, the militia is another word for the people. Specifically, it is the people when we assemble in the defense of our homes, of our communities, of our country, and of our liberty. Even the term state makes no sense if we understand it to mean government. It is not for government's sake that freedom must be secured. Rather, state refers to the entirety of the people as the body politic. We are a nation that is of the people, by the people, and for the people, and therefore the state is us. Yes. Therefore, we know that the Second Amendment, when properly understood, is saying that the people as individuals have the right to keep and bear arms. That this right is not to be infringed upon in the slightest, because it is we the people, when we assemble in defense of our liberty, who are necessary to securing the freedom of all of our fellow citizens. And we must have always at our disposal the tools that are necessary to function as a militia should, if the need should arise. Indeed, it is the fact that so many of us do have these tools available that will serve to keep us from needing to assemble as a militia at all. That is why we as freedom-loving Americans do not ignore or downplay the importance of the first half of the Second Amendment. On the contrary, not by any stretch of the imagination. Instead, we love the first half of the Second Amendment. We love it because it tells us that we are not subjects. We're not at the mercy of a government that can trample all over our rights without consequence. We love it because it tells us that so long as we have arms, no other nation will dare to set foot on American soil with the intent to conquer us. We love it because it tells us that we are not insignificant, but each and every one of us are a people with a duty. We are necessary to the security of the freedoms enjoyed by our countrymen. And so long as we stand as a deterrent against tyranny, our freedoms must be eroded by other means. Means that take much longer than by simple force. Our culture must be reshaped in the arena of ideas, by convincing people that the values that we once held dear are not valuable at all. And that's a much harder fight to make. Such an effort is underway in our nation, though. And although even as it is not being foisted upon us by force, not by brute force at any rate, we also should not combat it by the use of arms. But nevertheless, each of us is necessary in the battle taking place in this arena of ideas, in order to secure the freedoms enumerated in the Constitution. Possibly one of the most detrimental blows to the general consciousness of we the people, of the freedoms that we enjoy and our duty of securing them, happened in 1903. Can anybody guess what I'm talking about? It's called the Militia Act of 1903, under which the National Guard was established. This act did not replace the citizen militia. Instead, it defined it into two parts: the organized militia, or the National Guard, and us, the unorganized militia.
We're organized.
We're pretty organized too, right? However, in so doing, this act sowed in the minds and the hearts of Americans that they were no longer necessary to the security of a free state. The National Guard now fills that role, and that we as citizens can just kick back, relax, and let the government protect our rights for us. But we should never leave the government what was intended to be the duty of every American citizen. Trench Cox famously said, "Who are the militia? Are they not ourselves? Congress shall have no power to disarm the militia. Their swords and every terrible implement of the soldier are the birthright of an American. The unlimited power of the sword is not in the hands of either the federal or state governments, but where I trust in God, it ever will remain in the hands of the people." This reminds us that the first half of the Second Amendment, the half that outlines its purpose, also has massive implications concerning the type of arms that we ought to be able to keep and to bear. We are necessary to the security of a free state because the balance of power was always intended to remain in the favor of the people, not in the government and its standing armies. I'm as much a supporter of the military as anybody here standing. The men and women who are willing to fight and die in service to our country deserve every bit of respect and every bit of support that we can give them.
Yeah.
That said, it was never the intent of the framers for the military to have so much power that it could be used to subjugate the people. One of the arguments made by the Federalists in order to allay the fears of the Anti-Federalists, who did not want a standing army at all, was that the standing army would be minimal, and therefore the people would always have superior might to be able to restrain it from being used against them. And since that time, threats from our enemies around the world have required us to grow our military and advance our weaponry beyond what the common man can afford to keep or safely keep in his home. There's nothing that could have been done to avoid that without leaving our nation vulnerable to the enemies abroad. That's just reality. But that has resulted in a mounting disparity between the might of our military and arms available to the law-abiding civilian, whose duty it is to be a check on government overreach. Gun control legislation over the last 100 years has further widened that gap in our ability as citizens to stand against tyranny. We would be naive to think that this has nothing to do with why our government has been able to encroach inch by inch upon our civil rights ever since. If we are to have the ability to function as a militia was intended, which is the proper definition of well-regulated, by the way, that is functioning as intended, then it is beyond time that we merely play defense with our rights. Playing defense is just making it take longer for our rights to be taken away from us. It's merely allowing our rights to be taken away inch by inch and over a longer period of time than it does. That way it doesn't hurt as bad, like the frog boiling in the pot. It's merely trying to keep too much gun control from passing so that by the time they get the kind of guns that I own, it'll be decades down the road and I won't care anymore, because I probably won't even be around. No, it's time that we go on the offense when it comes to our rights, and that we push for legislation that will restore what has been previously taken from us. It is time we started restoring some of that parity of force between the government and the people, so that we can properly serve as a check on tyranny. It's time we push to repeal the NFA. Can I get an amen, right? It's time we push to repeal the Hughes Amendment. It's time we push to repeal every unconstitutional law that has been foisted upon us. We've been known to say not one more inch. But I'm here to tell you that unless we are actively pushing back to gain ground, then every bit of legislative change on the issue of gun control will not be in our favor. This is why every single person here, if you haven't done so already, needs to sign Initiative 1621. I'm not going to steal the thunder of my buddy Tyler over here, who's going to speak in a minute. But this initiative is important because it does exactly what I'm talking about. It represents going on the offensive. It's not merely a fight to keep what hasn't been lost, but a fight to gain back ground that has been previously taken from us. Don't waste that kind of opportunity. By all means, it is important that we stop the awful pieces of legislation that Bob Ferguson and others are trying to push through in this building behind you. Show up to those hearings. If you can't, then send written testimony. Stopping further gun control is imperative, because if we love the last half of the Second Amendment when it says, it shall not be infringed. But going on the offensive, narrowing that gap, that parity between the military might of our standing armies and the might of us as we the people, so we can properly serve as a check against government overreach, that's just as important. Because we don't just value the last half of the Second Amendment, we love the first half as well, because we know that all of us here, every single one of you who's standing out here in the rain, you're necessary to the security of a free state. Thank you very much.
Terrible weather.
Hey, this is Washington weather. Woohoo! Yay! Okay, well, so it's my honor to introduce to you our next speaker. He's one of our newest senators out of the 31st District, which is split between King and Pierce County. And he's one of our strongest guys. So if he's got a challenger, you better check it out. Anyway, my great honor to introduce to you Senator Phil Fortunato.
Thank you. You will hear them say that they had a success in passing the bump stock bill. And I'm here to tell you that the original bump stock bill banned every semi-automatic firearm. Okay? It banned the first paragraph of this thing. First paragraph banned any modification to a trigger that allows you to shoot faster. I said, I paid $200 so I could shoot faster. I said, this bans every semi-automatic firearm because it said any firearm that uses recoil to cycle. And when you go up to a person who sponsored that bill, and I said, this bans every semi-automatic firearm because it says this, firearm that uses recoil to cycle, and you get a response back that says, what does recoil have to do with semi-automatic firearms? And these are the people that are writing your gun laws. So, you know, last year, the Republicans had control of the Senate by one vote, and that was me. I was the 25th vote. You need 25 votes in the Senate to pass anything or stop anything. There's 49 members, you need a majority. The people of the 45th district, however, elected the Democrat. We lost that seat, so now the Democrats had control. Last year, anytime somebody sent me an email about gun control, about 30-round magazines, about assault weapon bans, I was able to say, none of that stuff is going anywhere because we have control. This year, it was like the gates of hell opened, right? And now, to be honest with you, somebody said to me, are you willing to send the NRA back their blood money? I said, hell, I send the NRA more money than they send me. They go, you're in the NRA's back pocket. I go, hell no, the NRA's in my back pocket. I send their money to protect my life. You know? And I said, if you can explain to me why the premier organization that sponsors gun safety and responsible gun ownership is responsible for anything that happens in Florida or wherever the hell it is, then I will rip up my AAA card because somebody drove drunk. What the heck are you talking about? But on the lighter side, every one of us has a responsibility to stand up for our rights. And by that, you don't have to be rude, you don't have to be nasty, you just have to ask them, and then what happens? That's all you have to say. they will come out and say, we need to ban 30-round magazines. I said, okay. There is an estimated 20 million AR-15s out there. Everybody here, everybody has at least 5 magazines. So that's 100 million 30-round magazines. So if we do everything that you tell us that you want to do, hell, we're going to seize everybody's gun. If you did that, will your child be safer in school tomorrow? And the answer is no. Now, if they had armed security, armed staff, teachers, staff, administrators, there's 10 school districts in this state that currently have armed teachers and or administrators. Okay? In those schools, would your child be safer? Yeah. So I sponsored the bill that said the Criminal Justice Training Commission should come up with an active shooter response program. Right? I should show you the hate mail I got from people. Right? I mean, these are the non-violent people. One of them I had to turn over to Senate Security, not because of what I thought, but because my wife saw it. So anyway, we need to stick up for our rights, and I went into the belly of the beast. I went into downtown Seattle to be on an anti-gun, to be on the pro-gun voice on an anti-gun panel. So if you want to have some entertainment when you go home tonight, type in Seattle TV, one word, seattletv.com, civic cocktails, talk about guns. The first half hour of this program was the communist congresswoman from downtown Seattle. All she talked about was impeaching Trump and all that stuff. And then she talked about her mission was going to be to ban 30-round magazines. So now it's half hour later, and they go, we're going to introduce the panel. First kid on the panel was a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid that did the march, right? Second person on the panel was the King County Department of Health telling you that locking up your handgun unloaded is a requirement and that is gun safety. I pointed out that was anti-woman, right? And I had about 10 women come up to me afterwards and said, what do you mean it's anti-woman? I said, I'm a family man, I got little kids and stuff like that. I might choose to lock up my guns, keep them out of the kids' hands. You're a professional woman, you live at home alone, you go into your apartment, you unlock the door, and as you go to close the door, a man bursts in behind you and grabs you to attack you. You then get away, run into your bedroom, unlock your safe, load your gun so you can protect yourself. And they all stopped and just looked at me. But that's not the funny part. The funny part is, the anti-group, whatever it is, what is it, gun responsibility, whatever the heck they are. She's over there saying like, oh, we passed these couple of bills. We were unsuccessful on passing, 3 or 4 because legislators don't represent their district. And I said, wait a minute. I represent the 31st legislative district. I got 110 anti-gun emails and 1,678 pro-gun emails. I represent my district. So here's the funny part. I said, and we're talking about, I said, if we pass everything that you say you want to do, nobody's going to be any safer. You're just going to make it safer for criminals. So I said, what would happen if somebody walked into this room right now with a gun? I said, you have 1 minute to assess that threat. You have 1 minute to determine whether that guy is going to do harm and react and have a response. And then I said, if you cannot respond in 1 minute, every one of you here is willing to allow 20, 30, 40 kids to die before the police get there. And they go, no! I go, how are you going to respond? You need to have a response. And unless somebody is armed and willing and able to respond within that 1 minute, from the time that kid in Florida pulled the trigger the first time to the time he pulled the trigger the last time was 3 minutes. And the police got there in 12 minutes. So what kind of response is that? So everything that they talked about at this Seattle thing was, we've just passed a law. You're talking about passing laws. We passed a law to, they want to allow felons to vote. They want to allow everybody to vote. We passed this 16-year-old. When your kid registers for his car, that 16-year-old is automatically going to be pre-registered to vote. So the big, why don't we raise the age to 21? I said, hey, I have no problem raising the age to 21. You raise the age to vote to 21. Hey, I'm all there. I said, if you're too damn stupid to vote at or buy a gun at 20 or 18, you're too stupid to vote. Too stupid to be in the military. They're talking about these kids on TV that, I have nothing against young kids. But what was it? Winston Churchill said, if you're 18 and you're not a liberal, you don't have a heart. If you're 30 and you're not conservative, you don't have a brain. So I said, nothing against these kids. I encourage them to be politically active, especially our kids. Our kind of kids. We want them to be politically active to counter the other kids who are doing what? Eating Tide Pods? I mean, you expect me to listen to some 16-year-old little punk? Cut me a break. But we need to be politically active. We need to make sure our people vote. We need to make sure our children understand our rights so that we can pass this on to the next generation. Otherwise, this erosion, today bump stocks, tomorrow 30-round magazines, after that some other band that's banning scary-looking guns. We will lose that right, and we will, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now, nobody will recognize this country. So I just would like to close with one thing and say, thank God Donald Trump got elected president. Okay? Thank God we have Neil Gorsuch on the Supreme Court. So now, if Ginsburg would just retire politely and go away, and we could get one more, that would help protect us. But I want you to think about this. We had the Heller decision was 5-4. What? What the heck are you talking about? 5-4? This should have been a 9-0. That's what we're hanging on. One vote. If it had gone the other way, what would this country look like right now? So, those are the things we need to be paying attention to. You need to make sure everybody is registered to vote. Our kind of people. When I went to a high school, one kid said to me one time, what are you doing to get more people to vote? I said, I don't want more people to vote. I want more people to vote for me. I want everybody else to stay home. So what we want is we want our kind of people to vote. And that's your mission, is to go home, make sure your children are passing that on, and if they're old enough, passing it on to their children. Thank you very much for coming out here in this nice fine weather for ducks. I got my duck jacket on. So thank you again. It is important that we are here to protect our rights. Thank you.
Liberty or give me death. I love those words. First said by Patrick Henry, March 23rd, 1775. Liberty or death. Ever since that was uttered, we've been fighting to keep our rights. My wife and I got involved in politics about 10 years back. We spent about 6 years teaching about the Constitution, so I'm going to do a little history lesson today. The history of the Constitution. You know, it was signed September 17, 1787. It took 10 months to ratify it. The internet must have been down. To be approved, 9 of the 13 states had to sign legislation to pass it. Delaware was the first to approve it, New Hampshire the 9th, and finally Rhode Island signed in, but that was almost 2.5 years later till all states had bought into the Constitution. The original 13 colonies had been operating under the Bill of Rights before that. So December 15th, 1971, The first 10 amendments were brought into the Constitution. Today we're going to focus on the Second Amendment, because that's what we're all here about, right? Yep. Okay, the Second Amendment was actually an extension of the English Bill of Rights that was written in 1689, which had the natural right of self-defense and resistance to oppression. Now, every time the forefathers talked about a natural right, that was a God-given right. Not a right given by man, but a right given by God. To further know why it was written, the Second Amendment, we go to the Federalist Papers. Federalist Paper number 46, James Madison wrote how a federal army could be kept in check by state militias. But what seemed to get lost was this natural right for self-defense. Everyone seems to focus on militias, but the Second Amendment gives us the right for self-defense. You know, most liberals will refuse to go to the Federalist Papers. A lot of the Supreme Court judges will refuse. As you can tell, they would prefer to read between the lines and make their own assertions to what the Founding Fathers meant. That's why our Constitution has gotten twisted the way it has. Some of these liberal sites, now here's something that you'll all get a real good laugh about. The Huffington Post, which is a good news, reliable source, right, claims that the Second Amendment was written to keep slaves in check. So, they also claim that the purpose of the NRA was the same. Now, the NRA was formed on November 17, 1871, and one of the main reasons of the NRA was to help arm free black Americans that were being persecuted by the Ku Klux Klan, which just by happened to be the Democrats. So let's talk about a well-regulated militia. Section 29 to the Federalist Papers, Alexander Hamilton to the people of the state of New York. The power of regulating the militia and commanding its services in times of insurrection and invasion are natural incidents to the duties of superintending the common defense and of watching over the internal peace of the Confederacy. So the use of militia has been used very broadly. In my opinion, I think of a militia could even be just a one-person militia. You know, look at Chuck Norris. Okay, the purpose of the Second Amendment, a free people ought not only to be armed, but disciplined. George Washington uttered this, the first annual address to both houses of Congress, January 8, 1790. So I'm just going to go through some things written down by our forefathers that just kind of back up the reason why we have the Second Amendment. No free man shall ever be debarred the use of arms. Thomas Jefferson, the Virginia Constitution, 1776. I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery. Thomas Jefferson's letter to James Madison, January 30th, 1787. What country can preserve its liberties if their rulers are not warned from time to time that their people preserve the spirit of resistance? Let them take arms. Thomas Jefferson to James Madison, December 20th, 1787. The laws that forbid the carrying of arms are laws of such nature. They disarm only those who are neither included nor determined to commit crimes. Such laws make things worse for the assaulted and better for the assailants. They serve rather to encourage than to prevent homicides, for an unarmed man may be attacked with greater confidence than an armed man. And that was Thomas Jefferson quoting the 18th century criminologist Caesar Beccaria, 1776. So even back then, they got it, that if you took our our right, our God-given right to defend ourselves, that we would become victims. So, to disarm the people is the most effective way to enslave them. George Mason, June 14, 1788, and we've seen that happen countless times in different countries where the government has taken the right to have guns, and within decades, millions of people have died in those countries. So I ask, who are the militia? They consist now of the whole people, except for a few public officers. So, as you can see, our forefathers knew we need to be armed. 1, to keep government in check. 2, to defend our borders. Right? You saw the movie Red Dawn? And 3, for our natural right for self-defense. Now I'm going to go a little bit into biblically why what the Bible says about defending ourselves. I was a pastor elder, and I'd just like to share a little bit what the Bible says, because I've been asked quite a bit on, well, you know, is this biblically correct? So Psalms 144:1. Praise be to the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for war, my fingers for battle. Exodus 22:2. If a thief is caught breaking in at night and is struck a fatal blow, the defender is not guilty of bloodshed. The Bible backs up that we have that right to defend ourselves.
Get the microphone to your face.
Luke 22:36. Jesus said, "But now if you have a purse, take it, and also a bag. If you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one." Nehemiah 4:16-17. So Nehemiah was rebuilding the wall, and he ordered his men, half of them to be armed to protect those that were building. Those that carried materials to the wall carried materials in one hand and a sword in the other. Even the apostle Peter always carried a sword at all times. So you can see biblically we have the freedom to defend ourselves. As free Americans, we not only have the right, but the duty to arm and defend ourselves. As an instructor for the ADTA, we are seeing more and more people coming in.
Really close, please.
As an instructor for the Armed Defensive Training Association, we are seeing more and more people coming in, learning to train, to be the militia that the Second Amendment talks about, because a well-regulated militia is a well-trained militia. Now, as I said, I'm running for state office. I'm going to go quickly into campaign mode. As Phil had talked about, you know, when we lost the 45th Senate seat, it flipped the House. Now, it is important to get people who care for your God-given rights to defend yourself in office. So you can support people like Phil. We've got Joey that's running for Congress, and myself. But I mean, look, like Phil said, just because I may not be running where you live, whatever happens in Olympia covers the whole state. So we really need to be actively involved all through the state and all the campaigns for people that stand up for our rights to bear guns. So I'll be out here. I'll have campaign information I can hand out. And go to my website, www.electrandyhayden.com. There's ways there you can help out. You can, if you're not registered to vote, you need to sign up to vote, because the only way we can get this country back to where it should be is by being proactive. And the best way to do that is to vote and to support the candidates who best cover the views that you have. So thank you for your time.
and is father to 2 wonderful little girls. He is the author and sponsor of Initiative 1621. That would allow concealed carry permit holders, including teachers, to carry on school grounds. Please welcome Tyler Miller.
How's everyone doing? Everyone staying dry? Sort of?
Quack, quack.
Getting a little wet? It's even better, right? So why are we doing Initiative 1621? Why did I come up with this initiative? Very simple. Our rights don't end at a mythological line on a property somewhere, right? We don't believe that. We don't believe that just because I step on the curb of a school ground or on a ball field or inside a classroom, that all of a sudden I've stopped being a citizen of this country. Now, what spawned me to come up with this idea? Well, I'll tell you. Our little girls go to a private Christian school. We have 6 classrooms. We have one of our one of our parents does the janitorial service for us. She's a woman. She's great. And she asked us permission to carry her pistol. She has a valid CPL from her car inside the building. She even offered to buy a safe and lock it up once she's inside the building. She just wanted to have the protection between her car and the parking lot at night and walking inside. We looked at the law and we realized we can't give her that permission. We're not allowed. That's not what we believe in this country, is it? We're a republic. We like to believe that the local citizens have the best ability to make the decisions for themselves, for their localities. Because we know that Seattle's going to do it way differently than Spokane, way differently than Bellingham, way differently than Bremerton. We like to have that local control. So that's why Initiative 1621 is important. It revises our concealed carry laws and allows anyone that has a valid CPL to be legally carrying on school grounds. Now, let's dispel one of the arguments right away. If you are not a parent at a school, if you're not a teacher at the school, if you're not a volunteer that regularly goes to that school, can you just show up at a school and walk around? No. Of course not. So if this initiative passes, are you going to be able to show up and just walk around with your firearm? No, of course not. This is not about instilling a private security force. This is about giving our local school districts the ability to have the conversation that is happening in the rest of the country. Now, we know that places like Tehopish, there's some counties and some school districts that have already given some administrators the right to carry. The law does allow them to do that right now. But it places the power with the school district. I want the power of the individual, the teacher who wants to carry, to go to their school district, to go to their principal and say, I want to carry my firearm. And I don't want the school district and the school to be able to tell them, no, you can't. Now, what I do allow in this initiative is the school district can require any employee to have a minimum level of training. They get to determine that. That's proper. That's local control. And if you don't like the policy they put in place, then you need to take a more active part in your school board, right? But we believe in the power of the individual. We believe in the rights of the individual. And that's what this initiative is about. Now, do I want school teachers or principals acting as security guards? I don't, not personally, no. Some people might, but I don't. What I envision is a scenario where if there, God forbid, is an incident at a school, and a teacher hears gunshots outside of their classroom, I do not want them abandoning their kids in their classroom to go out and try and put this perpetrator down. That's not their intent. That's not why they're there. I want them to try and get their kids out if they can. And if they can't, I want them to barricade the classroom as best as they can and get their kids away from the windows, away from the doors. But if that perpetrator is trying to get in, if that perpetrator is breaking through the windows, breaking down the door and getting into that classroom, I want that teacher to at least have the choice, the ability to equip themselves with the best tool available in a life and death situation to defend themselves and their kids.
Not a baseball bat?
Not a baseball bat.
Not a bucket of rocks?
Not rocks.
What about
maybe a pet tiger. That might have some more liability issues, but no, a firearm. This isn't about mandating. This isn't about forcing people to do anything they don't want to do. This is about choice. This is about liberty. Isn't that what we believe in? Liberty. Choosing, making decisions for yourself. Now, you know, we're not concerned about level of training, all right? If you make a decision to carry a firearm, you've already made a decision to take responsibility for yourself. I don't think there's any teacher in the world who is going to say, well, except for maybe that jackass in Parkland, right? Left his loaded Glock in a bathroom. Who believes that story's real? Anybody? I don't think so. Anyway, we're not talking about forcing people who don't want to or don't feel comfortable around firearms to pick up a weapon. We're talking about enabling choice, giving the power of liberty to the individual to make the right decision. And as a result, what do we get? We get enhanced security. We get better schools. Local law enforcement can absolutely coordinate with the teachers who decide to carry, with the school districts and their policies. I was talking with a gentleman today. I don't want to say where he's from or his position. He's law enforcement, and his big concern is that you're going to create a situation where there's going to be a lot of armed civilians in an active shooter situation. We're not going to know how to deal with it. And I said, sir, are you seriously telling me that your department is incapable of going to your school, going to the school district and talking to them and saying, what is your plan? Who is going to be armed? How are we going to respond? You can't do that? You, sir, need to find another job because you're incompetent to do your job if you can't have that conversation. Do we really believe that local school districts, the teachers, the people cannot come up with the safety plans to make this effective? If we believe that, then we might as well throw away the Constitution. We might as well get rid of our republic and just go to a dictatorship, because that means we don't believe in the power of the people to make good decisions. You know, one of my favorite lines in the movie Men in Black. Everyone seen that movie? And he's talking on the park bench just after Will Smith has discovered, you know, there's aliens or anything like that. And Will Smith's like, why don't you just tell everybody the people are smart? Tommy Lee Jones looks back and says, a person is smart. People are dumb, panicking animals, and you know it. That's partially true. But people is what have made this country work for over 200 years. Common people came together with ideas, and they talked about them. They argued about them. They debated about them. How many people remember that the Bill of Rights was not even wanted in the Constitution? They fought tooth and nail to keep the Bill of Rights out of the Constitution. Big fight, right? Then, when they got the agreement to have the Bill of Rights, they didn't even want the Second Amendment in the Bill of Rights. You know why? Because no one thought that it needed to be protected. No one thought that we would ever face a time where this idea of personal ownership and personal responsibility would ever have to be debated. But we are. And right now, the laws in this state do not allow us to have the debate. We need to get Initiative 1621 on the ballot, and we need to get it passed so that we can have the conversation, we can have the debate. If you're scared of having the debate, then you don't love the same country that I love. With that, we got petitions over here to sign. And you know what? Even if you're on the fence about it, sign the petition. Let the debate happen. You're not voting for it. You're simply allowing the debate to happen to vote for it. And that's all I think I got. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Thanks for braving the weather. Sign the initiative.
To make a stand for a constitutional right to bear arms. I would also like to thank David Clayton for setting this the infrastructure up for this national rally, as well as Christopher Code for organizing the event for our state. I would like to start the speech by telling you all just a little bit about myself and what I do before addressing the unconstitutional laws being passed and introduced by our state and around our nation. I was born here in Washington State and became politically active at the age of 16. I'm now an executive leader of the Constitutional Grassroots Movement, which works actively to endorse constitutionalist candidates after a very strict vetting process. We maintain a very high standard for our vetting procedures to ensure that only true constitutionalists will be endorsed. The constitutional grassroots movement does not care about party lines. It cares only about the Constitution and principle. We have endorsed candidates from both the Republican Party as well as the Constitution Party, and would be open to endorse candidates from any other party, including the Libertarian Party or Federalist Party, for example. If the individual is a true constitutionalist, we will support them and endorse them. If the patriot community would rally behind these candidates, the political landscape of this nation changes overnight. I also am aiming to step up and run for governor of Washington State in 2028 with the intention of nullifying all unconstitutional laws and regulations coming from D.C. and vetoing any unconstitutional laws that come to my desk from state legislators. While I have not officially declared my campaign, I am tired of establishment politicians taking our votes for granted and running. I have therefore decided to take matters into my own hands and make a difference myself, rather than rely on someone who won't actually do the job asked of them. As the saying goes, if you want something done right, do it yourself. If you would like to learn more about the constitutional grassroots movement or my governor race, feel free to come meet with me during intermission or after the rally. I'm willing to give out my Facebook information to have you all add me if you want. And moving on to why we are all here today, it is to send a message to those in power that we are sick and tired of them ignoring the Constitution and passing endless unconstitutional laws and regulations that go both beyond their constitutional duties and oftentimes violate our natural rights, which are protected by the Constitution. We are also here to say that we the people will not remain silent, and we will be heard. They cannot continue to ignore we the people and remain in power indefinitely. They will be voted out, they will be taken to court, and they will be challenged. And we will restore our constitutional republic. The other purpose of this event is to bring unity within the patriot and constitutionalist communities. We have been divided amongst ourselves for decades, with the establishment and media fueling this divide. Considering the amount of work that was put in and effort put in by various organizations within the patriot community around this nation, it is incredible to see we the people coming together to oppose these unconstitutional laws that are being forced upon us. If we continue to unite and work in unity for the protection and restoration of our constitutional republic, I not only believe that we can, but that we will change the course of America and finally bring about the end of establishment politics. This is just a short speech that I'm giving. I just wanted to make it short and sweet and to the point. So in closing, I would like to again thank everyone for coming out despite this bad weather, and I look forward to continuing to work with all of you.
Got it, brother!
All right. Okay. A little bit. All right. Next up is Peggy Hunt. She's a U.S. Air Force veteran. She started her civic engagement in '09 with the Tea Party. She has started numerous groups in the state and has built a wide network of patriots since. She has been a Tea Party state coordinator since January of 2012. The National Tea Party organization became PCO in 2012 and worked on multiple campaigns. Was once one of the 11 finalists recognized as Civic Educator of the Year by our Washington State House of Representatives. In 2015, elected into Republican Party leadership in her district. The last 2 terms, she was selected as one of 15 to meet the candidate Trump backstage at Everett Rally. Please welcome Peggy Hutt.
Thank you. Oh my, thank you for sticking around long enough to hear me in this rain. Anyway, how many of you know the John Birch Society? Let me just start there. Okay, well, they started in the late 50s, the year I was born, and as I did the Tea Party, we got to know the John Birch, and basically they're our grandparents. That's what I call them. But they were telling the truth back in the 50s and 60s, and they got marginalized, just like the Tea Party did back in the, 09, 10, and 11 when they said the Tea Party was dead. So, I have a lot of John Birch friends, and I wanted to read. I'm going to start off by this statement, because it follows along everything that you've heard today. It says, do you want to influence their future? Meaning our children, our grandchildren, and your neighbor's children. You're not wanting to leave that responsibility to someone else. You're a leader. As a constitutionalist, you want an effective way to roll back the tide of socialism and restore American liberty. And you want to do so without wasting your time trying to reinvent the wheel. And that is why we are all here today, because there's a plenty here already for us to do in our civic engagement so that we can marginalize the socialism creep in this country. So, I want to ask, how many are not a registered voter? Okay, yay! Oh, 1. Okay, so you need to come to the table afterwards because we can register you online if you would like to be registered. Oh. Challenge has now been immense. Okay.
Tickets for Mexico, you want to do that?
So, well, thank you for being here because you're starting the wave of the future, and you are why we are here. So, how many know their legislative district? So how many don't know their legislative district? If you don't know, come to the table. So civic engagement is how we will win this while we prepare for when the shit hits the fan. So as Joey said, this is about freedom and liberty in the U.S. So we can't really affect D.C. from here until we make this state red. So how do we do that? It's by getting engaged in your legislative district, in your county, and in your state, okay? So I learned somebody came to me in 2012 and said, we need you to be a PCO. I said, you need me to be a what? So how many know what a PCO is? How many don't know what a PCO is? Okay, a PCO is called a precinct committee officer. It is an elected or appointed position inside either party. Okay, in each precinct, it's called a precinct. A precinct is a large neighborhood, no more than 1,300 or 1,500 registered voters. And your legislative districts are broken up into precincts. So you are elected to represent that and reach out to those voters to help turn out the vote. There's a lot more to it. But the thing is, inside the party as a PCO is the power of the people. We talk about the power of the people. So how do you do that civically? It's by becoming a PCO and help steering this damn political party to the right. So that means all of us participating in that process, because that is where your voice is heard first. And inside the party, we actually find out who are the candidates a year before you all. We get to know them. We vote on whether we support them or not, or whether we want to endorse them. We get to know what initiatives are coming down the pike. We get to know who's going to run for county council a year before you all. So if you want to know and be able to make choices and vote on that, at that level, that's where we need you. I've been busy building the army inside the party. So please come join me if you're interested, because you can either, work on the outside of the party or work on the inside of the party, and some of us do both. So guys, I still do my grassroots, and I'll tell you what, the longer I'm there, I've been there about 6 or 7 years now, more love me, but there's still a bunch that look at me as a huge threat. And I say, as long as there's a threat, and I'm doing my duty. So anyway, the other thing to know is that by design, these parties are 2/3 empty. These PCO slots are 2/3 empty. That is a silver lining for us. That tells us we only need 1/3 plus 1 to be the voice and to move the party in that direction. So how many of you like that idea?
Yeah.
It's really not that hard, and the more of us that are in there working, the less work I have to do. Because I tell you, I've probably pounded in the last couple of years 20,000 signs. I'm ready to turn that over to a newbie. So there's a lot of really good reasons why we should be engaged. So what's really awesome is the grassroots network I've been part of since '09, and it's across this country because I was part of a national organization. But the network here in Washington is great, and it goes right along with what Joey was saying and everybody else that's been up here. There's a ton of us American patriots that are willing to stand in the damned rain. You know, so that means you're willing to stand and do other things. So we just got to tell you what those things are and how we can help one another make this state red. We are only one seat in the House away from owning the House. Oh no, I'm sorry, 2 in the House, 1 in the Senate. So people say this is a blue state. I would venture to say we're not. We're real damn close. We're more of a purple with a red bent, okay? But it just takes a little more effort, a little more help. So we can take the state. We can take the state, but I can't do it on my own, and I can't do it with only 1/3 of the people in the party, and when a majority of that third is establishment. So anyway, I really appreciate your time, and I want to help get the next speaker up here. Oh, one other thing to tell you. Here's an important piece on the primary versus the general. How many of you actually vote in the primary? Okay, most people don't realize the importance of that, because in the primary you might have 6 or 7 candidates. And when you vote in the primary, you get to pick the best of those two out of those people to send us the top 2 to the general. And so you're sending those people that don't vote, your vote becomes a whole lot more powerful. So we got to really turn out the vote. But on average, in a legislative district, the turnout for a primary is 20 to 23,000 registered voters in a district. Most districts have 75 to 86 to 90,000 registered voters in this state. And the average turnout for that general election in November is like 75,000. So we're even low there. But when you compare the numbers in the general to the primary, you know, why would you wait and only vote for the top 2? The 2 remaining that everybody else decided for you. Because you make my vote a hell of a lot more powerful. So, you know, tell that to your neighbors, and I have a little paper on that, print it out if you want one. But tell that to your neighbors so you can help us get that vote in the primary first. Because that's where the power is. You know, that's where the power is. Otherwise, you're voting for the crumbs. So anyway, thank you all. Please get involved. Come sign up if you want. If you want more information from me, the Tea Party, John Birch, and of course my friend is sharing the table. She's from the American Legion. So any veterans, thank you very much. Have a great day.
Next week, here he is.
Thank you. So good evening, everybody. It looks like we got some wonderful weather for me to talk up here and everybody else to present. I'm honored to be here. I'm so glad I was invited to speak to so many like-minded patriots. We heard a lot about the Second Amendment tonight. That's very good. We've spoken a lot about getting involved. So we talked about one way with Peggy, and that's through politics. But I want to talk to you about another way. A great friend of mine and a great patriot who couldn't make it here tonight has been telling everybody he knows that education is key to getting our rights preserved and our rights restored. This is the absolute truth, and the gun grabbers know this too. We can see this with the protests that are getting massive mainstream support. We saw this on the 24th rally last month. It was non-stop coverage
while it was supported by big business, big money, and mainstream media. What did we have on our rally that went across the nation at every capital? What did we get? We had a Fox News one-sentence segment about counter-protest to the 24th. They didn't go into any kind of depth. Education is something that all of us have to get involved in. This is not something we can sit back and have the help from the media like the gun grabbers and everybody against our rights are able to do. Right now, the AP history classes give paraphrased explanations of our Bill of Rights. They do not write the text for our youth when they're going through AP history. Kids these days actually believe that we have a democracy. They do not understand that we have a constitutional republic. They protest against capitalism and for socialism, and the reason they do this is they're poorly educated. They're ignorant to the horrors of what they're trying to achieve. Most of these kids don't understand our Constitution. They don't know why we have the rights that we have. That's where we all step in. A great man once said, Ben Franklin that is, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. We must defend our essential liberties at all costs. It starts with this education of our youth. Those who seek to take our freedom and control their people have known for centuries that to control a people, you go after the children and you go after the education system. Here's a couple quotes that'll support that. The first quote, education is a weapon whose effects depend on who holds it in its hands and who it is aimed. That was Joseph Stalin. Another one that we're seeing play out all of the time in current events. Make the lie big. Make it simple. Keep saying it, and eventually people will believe it. That's Adolf Hitler. Another one by Hitler. He who controls the youth gains the future. And you're trying to say that the left is not going after our kids. Nobody out here is trying to say that. The mainstream media is trying to say that. They're going after our children, and they're trying to get them to believe a massive lie. And finally, the last quote, a lie told often enough becomes truth. That's Vladimir Lenin. All of these men were evil, tyrannical dictators who controlled their people. All of them went after the youth and went after the education of the people and mainstream spread of lies. We have to keep fighting, but more important than just our protests, standing here on the Capitol steps, is the education of our youth. Talk to your kids. Talk to your grandkids. Talk to your nieces, your nephews. Talk to strangers on the street. Pass out pocket constitutions. Some of us do this. They're cheap. They're easy. People don't know what's in that. Maybe if they have it, they got some reading material. The brainwashing of our youth is in full force. We must find a way to spread the truth and hope. Hope that we're not too late. Thank you all for your time. And it was great. I'm glad the rain's stopping. We'll see how long that lasts.
Welcome, system engineer with Advice PC Group and avid supporter of Second Amendment rights. Here's Bill Rowland.
Hello, everybody. Actually, I got a couple things I want to say first. Everybody likes to talk about gun laws, and they say that they're going to protect us. But the one thing I want to ask everybody, when was the last time anybody saw somebody go into a gun shop and hold them up at gunpoint? Okay, it doesn't happen because guns are a deterrent. You never see them go into a police station. Why? Because they're afraid of death. There's no different. Well, I'm going to try to keep it a little shorter than what I was going to do for the rain purpose. But I am an NRA member. I'm a veteran, and I'm a business owner. And I sit here with all fellow Americans and ask you guys to get involved, because we have to. United, we can win. Currently, we have many groups attempting to take away our rights to defend ourselves. This is not a new agenda, but it is a progressive agenda. It started with the prosecution of people that defend themselves against intruders and violent people, alongside with manipulated statistics that slant towards the anti-gun agenda. Now, part of my opinion on this is that it's a scare tactic to get people not to want to defend themselves with the deadly force if they have to. But most of this stuff is all about emotion. It's not about fact. Now, I would not have a defense against these groups if the enemy, okay, that came into someone's home was truly prosecuted, required to pay restitution to the victims. Not to mention, many of them have a huge criminal history of the same or similar crimes. Furthermore, many go on to commit additional crimes even later, so there's no change to what actually happens. The criminals, in many cases, the criminals don't even have a means to be able to pay restitution to the people that they have actually taken advantage of. Now, there's one actual story that I want to share, and it's only because we have a lot of people in the public eye that like to say that the NRA organization and the members, they're killers. They want to actually go out and kill people. As a business owner, I had to actually move our business out of the city of Tacoma. Now, I had to do it only because I have two choices. Either I have to defend myself and take my chances, or I have to give up my rights. Now, I'm not one that actually just walked away. Okay, I actually met with the councilman of that area. And actually what they told me is that they spend millions of dollars every year to help the homeless situation. But the problem is, he also told me that they won't prosecute them if they break the law. I have a problem with that. We actually need to make sure that we have laws that are applied equally across all people. This thing about equality that is in the media is not equality. Now, the very last incident that actually happened, that I actually said, okay, I'm done, because I have to make a decision whether I'm going to change my life, change my family's life, or my business. I was at work one night. I heard a commotion out behind my building. I go out there and there's two people out there doing drugs. I am a concealed weapons permit holder, and I was armed. A guy pulled a knife on me. And I just looked at him and told him his day was not going to end very well if he didn't leave the property. Now, luckily, because I don't jump right to deadly force, I told him to leave. We had a few words, and he did leave, and no other incident. But the problem is, if he would have came at me, I would be actually tried by 12. But we need to change that. There is no reason why that we should be fearful to protect ourselves. Let's see. Like I said, I'm trying to cut through some of this. So actually, I'm probably going to talk about something that's not very popular, but the Florida shooting. We hear a lot of people talk about how we need more gun laws because of that. But the problem is there was, I think it was 37, but I'm going to say 35 approximately, reports against the individual that went back into that school and shot up the actual school. They were actually told that he made a threat on, I think it was Facebook. But law enforcement, for whatever reason, didn't take it serious. So did we actually fail as a society? No, we didn't. We did what we were told to do, and that is to notify law enforcement. So the problem really isn't that we need to stand behind and say law enforcement do everything. This is why we need a Second Amendment.
Now, of course, the anti-gun movement is using the Florida shooting as a backstop for their reason to simply grab at emotions in people in order to take away our gun rights. Now, they're not really doing it for justice, though, because justice is holding the shooter accountable and not the mechanism used. Now, of course, I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with what's in the news, but London's barely been in the news about the violence.
Not in control now.
Yeah, I know. So, just for some people, if you guys don't know, in 2017, now first, okay, I'll say this. London has a pretty strict gun laws. They say that pretty much you can't own one. But yet they had over 6,000 injuries in 2017. But to go and show that it's not the actual mechanism, it's actually the evil heart, they had over 37,000 injuries by knives. And I hear that they're actually trying to outlaw knives now. But my problem is that if people really want to say that we need to take care of our citizens and stop the deaths, then let's get rid of cars. Because cars cause more deaths than any gun. So there isn't, if they're really trying to go after what is right, okay, about what they're saying, which is we want to protect our citizens, we have to go after what is causing the most deaths. I'm not even talking about the actual drug addictions. I'm not talking about the actual abortions that actually happen. But the funny thing is most of the actual areas that have the most gun laws have the most gun violence. So why is it that people seem to think that that's the correct thing to do? Take away the guns and all the violence will go away. I mean, for crying out loud, heroin has been illegal for decades. So it's gone, right? We don't have it. Well, that's not true, because laws don't actually fix the actual problem. You see, the laws, in a general sense, are not written for law-abiding citizens. They're actually written to go ahead and have a document that allows us to know what we're going to do with somebody that crosses the line. But yet we have lawmakers that think that they have a right to go ahead and take our guns. But we all have to stand together. We all have to make sure that we're paying attention to fact and stop talking about emotions. And we need to stand up against the people that are actually out there trying to make up lies. The one thing that I do encourage everybody to do is to get involved. And I don't care how. Get involved. The other thing is when you go to vote, you want to make sure you vote on fact. How many times have we been told something by a politician and they get in office and we never see what they said they were going to do? 3/4 of the time. And I don't know if this is completely true. I did not get a chance to actually research this, but it's my understanding that in the state of Washington, there is a law or regulation that's on the books that says you can't hold a politician accountable for what they say, even if they tell a lie. The only thing that you can hold them accountable for is a felony. So, I don't know if we can really change that, but we need to do something, but we need to understand it first. Like the previous people have said, we have to be educated. And we have to be able to stand up against what is coming against us with knowledge. And then don't be afraid. Stand up. Just like the person that pulled the knife on me. Honestly, I have to say that, yeah, my heart skipped a beat. Because I actually thought I was going to have to shoot them. But it's not my first goal. But while I'm on that, there's something else that I want to talk about. And that's about equality. You see, it's funny how that as a concealed weapons permit holder, I'm not allowed to pursue anybody, even if they're armed. But why is it that a criminal can come in your house and you shoot them, and now you're the one that's actually going to jail? Didn't he come to you, he or she, come to you? Why don't we have equality? That if you can't chase them, then they shouldn't come to you. And why can't we get to the point to where that we're looking at stuff that is based on, I'm going to say, origin. So the fact is, if that perpetrator never entered your house, you never would have shot them. So you shooting them is not the actual end result. The end result, or the beginning result. The beginning result was, if he didn't enter your house, you wouldn't have to shoot him. But why is it that we don't have that? I mean, it's a question that I think we all need to start asking. We need to become a little more analytical about what we're looking at. And I hope that, at some point, that we can continue to push this movement to a point of actual complete success. I hope that, you guys have endured the rain. I'm going to go ahead and close out for here, and thank you guys for coming.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Bill. Yeah. You know what I call that? I call that sacrifice. Every single one of you that made it out here today has made sacrifice. And that's what's it's gonna take to win this battle. This battle in the arena of ideas is going to take each and every one of us making sacrifice, whether that's sacrifice like Peggy has talked about, getting involved in whatever party that you want to get involved in to make change within that party so that people think about the Second Amendment in a different way. Or whether that is getting involved in getting registered and helping to gather signatures for Initiative 1621, or whatever way that you choose to get involved, all of that is going to require sacrifice. And I'm encouraged because I see every one of you out here, I know you're willing to make sacrifice because you're here. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you guys to our next speaker. She is a member of AP 3%. She's one of the founders of AP 3 Not Me. Please welcome Shauna Vallette.
Hi guys, so I'm really nervous. So he alone who owns the youth gains the future. That's exactly what's happening right now. Someone decided to use our children to support agendas. Turn on any news station and you will see children protesting and attempting to make decisions for adults. You know who said that statement? Hitler. My name is Shauna, and I'm an American Patriot 3%er, and I'm one of the co-founders of the AP3 Not Me hashtag. I am a proud woman. I'm a Messianic Jew, and I'm proud of my heritage. I can tell you that gun control didn't work so well for my ancestors and for my beloved Rabbi Kurt, who had a number tattooed just inside his ribs from the encampment that he was imprisoned in as a child. I grew up to understand what the face of hatred looked like, going to temple in Long Beach, California on a Saturday morning as a child, only to find swastikas spray painted on the front doors of my beloved synagogue. This is supposed to be a safe place to learn and worship God. It didn't happen that way. We are so quick to forget the past and ignorant to think that we could do things different if we take away people's guns and their rights. We have not learned anything. We are all willing to sit back and do nothing on our couches and be comfortable in front of our TVs and watch Housewives and all the other crazy programs that they have that are inciting hate, crime, and unlawfulness. The big media and the Hollywood outlets unbridled their support with the leftist politicians to send a message that it is cool to live in fear and victimization is a way of life. As we live in our fantasy worlds and they are armed with their guards and behind security fences far out of touch with reality and the American people. All the while supporting women wearing their pink pussy hats and wearing vaginas as costumes, screaming vulgar and obscenities. This is what they expect to excite change. Fighting for women's rights is disgusting if you're going to fight that way. I'm an American woman. I have rights, and I don't find that attractive.
Tell it, sister!
Woo! So with that being said, that's what started the hashtag AP3 Not Me. We want to push back to these women and to this society that wants to victimize all of us and take away our rights and to use our children against us. We have rights as women, and we have a right to defend ourselves as men and women of this country. Where are all the cries for all the babies that are being killed every day by abortions? Where are all the cries for all the people that are dying from the drugs that are brought in from the southern border? How about empowering people instead? Let them come as a community and teach their neighbors and their small group members and their co-workers how to defend themselves, how to defend their country, and how to stand up for their Constitution.
Yeah!
Let's not lean on big government or small to defend ourselves and to protect our rights. We need to do that ourselves. Nobody else can do it for us. We as citizens of this great United States give American to defend its family and its homes, to raise our children to respect and law-abiding citizens, and to understand the Constitution. It is our duty. And I'm surprised that we are not doing more about that. We need to bring it back into our schools, and we need to bring it back to this country in general. We as law-abiding citizens do not need to be controlled. Law-abiding citizens are the ones who defend the Constitution. They are the ones who protect us from tyranny. I'm a law-abiding citizen, and I have an unalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. With that life, I choose not to be a victim. And I pray to God that all of us stand up and join together and take this fight on, head on. Woo! Those are my sisters. Let's learn to defend ourselves and not be afraid to speak out. Not me. You don't get to take my guns. You don't get to take my rights. And you don't get to unprotect us from the criminals that are out there. I will close with this. We are not defined by what we have done in our past or what has happened to us as victims. We are defined what we do with it today from here on out with our future. Thank you. So with that, I'm going to say a couple things. I want to thank AP3 for stepping up, and my brothers, Chris Cord and James, and Peggy Hutt from the Tea Party. I just want to thank everybody who helped out and stuff. I asked these guys to take over for this because I didn't have time because of the hashtag AP3 not me. It has gone national. It's insane. But that was kind of what we wanted. We wanted to make a difference. So I asked my brothers and my sisters to step in, and they did. And they made this happen today. And I appreciate every one of you for standing out in the rain. It takes a warrior to be here. And we all need warriors in this country to make the difference. I want to thank the generous donations of my sister Joanne, John, and all of his coffee. If you guys want coffee, we got some. Mark, Randy, and Brian. So we're going to do a candlelight vigil. We still can if you guys are up for it. If not, it's kind of rainy and everybody's wet. But I do want to thank you all again for coming out. Make sure you sign the initiative. Make sure you go see Peggy at the Tea Party table and come see us at AP3. I want to thank all of our speakers. It's been an amazing day. We had a really good turnout considering it is pouring rain. And God bless all you guys. And remember, not me.
Amen. Let's not be victims either of the burglar coming into our home or of the government coming to knock down our door. So we're going to have mercy on you guys here. We're going to wrap things up. We've got a singer to come and help us, to lead us as we sing God Bless America. This young lady was born and raised in the Northwest. She loves to honor our stars and stripes by singing the national anthem in an environment where patriotism is not a casual option but a cherished liberty. Her desire is that our nation's national anthem would be the clarion call to awaken fellow Americans who may have fallen asleep to their patriotism, for them to rise up against anything that would infringe upon our freedom. And she gives all glory to God. Please welcome Miss Kelly Sue to lead us in God Bless America.
While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us swear allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful for a land so fair,
Thank you very much, Kelly Sue. Thank all of you for coming out today. Let's end this thing the way we started, the right way. Let's end in a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you that liberty is not dead in this country, but that it lives lively in the hearts of those patriots that are here gathered today. Lord, I pray that you would give us strength, that you would give us the purpose and drive to move forward and to push against the things that would come against us, the lofty ideas of the progressive cause of pulling away our ability to defend ourselves and defend our liberty. Lord, I pray that you would be our guiding beacon in that fight. I pray all this in your name, in the name of your Son. Amen. Thank you all. Have a safe trip home. Thank you.